What is up, comic book fans? So, I got an interesting request by a few folks, who have been following my channel, and they said that, hey, we'd love to know what, your top 10 characters are, comic book wise from DC and Marvel. And I said that, that would be an interesting idea to follow. And when I was actually putting the list together, I kind of, I would say, cheated a little bit because I've kind of separated the list into two lists, which is one is, all the male superheroes slash comic book hero and characters and villains. So it's a mix of everyone. And the second would be all the female comic book superheroes and villains, sort of put together, or anti-heroes, as some might say, as it's known for. So this was a lot of fun to do, and I just want to dive in. I'd love to know what a lot of you guys think. Who would be your top 10 characters overall, or do you have two separate lists? I'd love to hear from you. But without any further delay, let's just jump into it. So for me, it's kind of interesting because I'm actually going to start my list off with a character which I was quite surprised in more recent years I've grown to really connect with. I mean, obviously as a kid when I got into comics in the early 90s, I wasn't aware of this character. I never read their comics as well. It wasn't so widely available also where I was. But I would actually begin my list with Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider has turned out to be a very interesting character for me, and I love both, Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch, And not to mention, I really appreciated, some of the recent action figures that came out, particularly Marvel Legends during the 85th anniversary, and the Danny Ketch and Ghost Rider bike coming out. That was a pretty cool set. Picked up a couple of those, but Ghost Rider would come in at number 10 for me. Number 9 for me would be a character that I've been a huge fan of, since this character debuted in a very important storyline, which is Nightfall, and that has to be Azrael, or Azbat as he's known. Loved the first iteration of the suit, loved, all the other iterations. Of course, when he finally, I think comes in at the end, with that red suit, it has flamethrowers, or just before that it's blue, it turns red because he's in a bit of a fire and he's having a big battle with Nightwing. But I always liked the character, thought it was very interesting, a stark difference from, Bruce Wayne Batman. So he comes in at number 9, and from the same storyline, it was introduced to us, a new villain, and that was Bane. So Bane is another character that I really like, and I think that the Sideshow Daniel Bell piece, which is, Bane standing on a crushed Batmobile hood with his fists, one fist in the other hand, that statue is incredible, and fortunately I was able to get that. But Bane as a character, I find him to be a very interesting villain. So he comes in at number 8. Number 7 is also another interesting villain for me, and that is the Joker. Also again from the Batman mythos. So the Joker, the Clown Prince of Crime. Love the Killing Joke story, as most do, but I also love the Three Joker storyline, and I think I still regard it as canon and as a successor to the Killing Joke and A Death in the Family. For those who know what that story is, For those who haven't, I would encourage you to check that out. So the Joker comes in at number 7. Number 6 for me is a character who many consider to be Marvel's greatest villain. Some say he's an anti-hero, but whatever you might say about him, I think he is one cool character, and I've been a huge fan of him ever since I saw him in the cartoons years and years ago. That is Doctor Doom. And Doctor Doom is, Victor, as some might say by his real name. He's a character that, is so fascinating on so many levels, right? And just in a similar vein as him, I would at number 5, choose Deathstroke from DC, and I would always consider him to be a good hero, neither good nor bad. I mean, obviously he debuted with the New Teen Titans, and he's considered to be a Batman villain. I think when Ben Affleck was going to make his Batman movie, which got shelved, obviously, Deathstroke, the character, was meant to be the villain. But I've always seen Deathstroke as a kind of like this anti-hero with his own agenda, doing his own thing, not a straight-up villain per se. That's just my view. Coming in at number 4 has to be a character that when I first saw him as a kid, I thought, why are they ripping off Batman's design here? Just from the face structure of where his face and his costume was. And some of you know who I'm talking about. But of course, he's far more than that. He's his own character. He's distinct. And what he does is he's the best at, but what he does isn't very nice. I'm, of course, talking about Wolverine, Logan. And he comes in at number 4 for me. Number 3 for me has to be where it all started for comic book characters. Everyone knows this. And number three is Superman. And for me, the definitive Superman run started with 1986's John Byrne's Man of Steel, went all the way through the wedding of Lewis and Clark, which I think happened just towards this the latter part of the 90s. So for me, that's my definitive Superman run. Obviously, the death and return of Superman remains my favorite story arc of the character, so he comes in number three. Number two for me is, of course, every person's favorite character the world over, arguably the most famous superhero presently and has been for quite a few years, which is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a character that we all love, and I'm talking, of course, about Peter Parker, the OG. That's where it's at. So he comes in number two. Number one has been the character that I've first saw when my dad got me the movie way back in the 80s when I was a little kid. And he's always been number one for me. I've always collected, and most of my collection is devoted to this character. And he will forever be the number one comic book character for me, which of course is Batman. And I'm proud to say that I'm a real Batmania, Bathead. And by the way, Batman 89 still remains my favorite Batman movie. Michael Keaton, best Batman. Christian Bale, best Bruce Wayne. Best fighter, Ben Affleck. And I would say the best dancer, Adam West. We all grew up on the 60s TV show, and that was fun for me. So with that, I'm just going to segue straight into my list of best top female characters. So coming in at number 10 would be Wonder Woman. Great character. Everyone loves this character as well. Part of the holy trinity of DC with Batman, Superman, and of course Wonder Woman. Number 9, I'm a huge fan of Mary Jane. I think she is the true soulmate of Peter Parker, the one who supports him. For those wondering, no, I'm not a big fan of Brand New Day or whatever that storyline is and so on. For me, Mary Jane is his wife, his partner, everything. Of course, there are many different viewpoints of different fans and so on, but she is a very strong character. Number 8 was a fascinating character which I saw in the animated movie which came out, which of course is The Mask of the Phantasm. And the Phantasm character I find to be a very, very interesting character. Andrea Beaumont, if I've got her name right. So when it's finally revealed, who she is and what her motivations are and so on, it's pretty impactful as well. She comes in at number 8. Number 7, of course, is related again to the Joker. And of course, I'm talking about Harley Quinn. Loved her depiction in the animated series way back in the 90s when that show debuted. And love most of the iterations right now. And she comes in at number 7. Number 6, for me, of course, has to be She-Hulk. And I'm, of course, not talking about the show. At least to me, it was god-awful. Hated it. But She-Hulk as a character and her comic book run, especially in the late 80s and 90s, if I'm remembering this right, loved the depiction, loved her as a character, thought she was very cool. All right, coming into my top 5. Number 5 has to be Mystique. She is phenomenal. I think this character and her motivations and the way she has her own style and her own attitude and her own reasons for doing what she does. Phenomenal. Yes, villainous, as many might say, but still a very interesting character nonetheless. Number 4 is Rogue. Rogue is again a very powerful character in the whole X-Men lineup, and I've always been a big fan of Rogue, especially the animated show. Loved her relationship with Gambit as well. Number 3 would be my favorite X-Men female character, and that goes to Storm. I mean, she just commands respect all the way through, and for all of us guys, we used to love it in the animated show again when she used to get into her thing and summon the forces of nature and so on. So she comes in at number 3. Number 2, of course, is Batman villainess, and of course I'm talking about Poison Ivy. Wonderful character. Love the way she's also shown in the Hush storyline. I think that's one of her best portrayals, and even in the animated show as well. So she comes in at number 2. Number 1, of course, I'm pretty sure some of you may have guessed already who it might be, but it is, of course, the soulmate partner to the Dark Knight. I'm of course talking about Catwoman. There's no way around it. Selena Kyle, Catwoman, she is always going to be number one. And I absolutely love the many different versions that they've shown throughout many of the comics and movies and so on. I still say Michelle Pfeiffer remains the best Catwoman. I'm putting it out there. All right. So there you have it, guys. My top 10 of comic book female characters, along with the earlier list, which was my top 10 male characters. Love to hear from you what all of you think. Who are your favorite ones? How would you rank them? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your views? Love to hear from you. Thanks so much for the support, and I will catch you later. Until then, be a nerd, enjoy yourself, and keep reading and keep enjoying the comic book world. Take care.